Hi guys, in this video we are going to discuss the distinction between properties and definitions of quadrilaterals. Quite often when a student is asked how do you define a rhombus, well, he says that the rhombus, the diagonals are perpendicular, they bisect each other. Well, that's correct, but it does not define a rhombus. Actually, these are the properties. So let's move ahead and start discussing the basic quadrilateral. So the first thing first, how do you define a quadrilateral? Well, a quadrilateral is a simple closed curve which is made up of four line segments. And as you can see in the figure which is right in your screen, the one at the top is a quadrilateral, and when you draw the diagonals of this quadrilateral, you see that you don't see any relation between the two diagonals. They don't bisect each other, they are not perpendicular to each other. And so what is the property of a quadrilateral, a simple quadrilateral? Well, the property is sum of all interior angles is 360 degrees. So let's move down the hierarchy and be more specific with the quadrilateral. The first one, little bit, out of the lot, so to say, odd figure out is a kite. Now, how do you define a kite? You can see this kite on the screen, and I've marked the vertices as A, B, C, D. So how do you define a kite? Kite means two distinct pairs of consecutive equal sides. Now this is how you define. Consecutive means the sides which are after one another. So like side AD, yeah, the sides which are adjacent, consecutive or adjacent. So side AD is equal to side AB, and side CD is equal to side CB, as you can see here in the diagram. Now so this is how you define it. Now the properties, you can see that if you draw the two diagonals, the diagonals are perpendicular to each other. Now only one diagonal bisects the other. So AC is bisecting DB, but DB is not bisecting AC, as you can see from the figure. And the angle at D is equal to the angle at B. So these are the properties. Diagonals are perpendicular to each other. One pair of diagonally opposite angles is equal. Only one diagonal is bisected by the other. Move on to trapezium. How do you define a trapezium? Well, trapezium is a quadrilateral with a pair of parallel sides. So you can see in the figure, AB is parallel to DC. So this is how we define it. And what about the properties? I don't see any relation between the diagonals, do you? They are not congruent, they are not bisecting each other, they are not perpendicular to each other. But because AB is parallel to CD, now look at these angles A and D here. Now what do you know about them? Because this is like AD is like a transversal that cuts two parallel lines AB and DC. So angle A and angle D are interior angles on the same side. And what will be their property? Well, their sum is going to be 180 degrees. So angle A plus angle D is equal to 180 degrees. Angle B plus angle C similarly will be 180 degrees. There will be no relation between the opposite angles of this trapezium. Alright guys, now some people, some books are fond of discussing isoceles trapezium. It's not there in many books, but anyway, let's have a look at it. Now isoceles, you guys are familiar with the term. Isoceles means the non-parallel sides are equal. So AD is equal to BC. Now what does it mean? Now this is how you define it's a trapezium in which the non-parallel sides are equal. So that this is the definition. What about the property? Well, if you look at angle D and angle C, they pretty much make the base angles of an isosceles triangle. So they are equal. Angle C is equal to angle D. Similarly, angle A is equal to angle B. And as I said before, in a trapezium, the interior angles on the same side of the transversal are supplementary. So angle A plus angle D is equal to 180 degrees. Okay, now we move on to a parallelogram. how do you define a parallelogram? Well, the definition, a quadrilateral whose opposite sides are parallel. And from henceforth, the rest of the figures, the three other figures remaining, will be defined on the basis of definition of a parallelogram. So we need to be very clear about the definition of parallelogram. Parallelogram is defined as a quadrilateral whose opposite sides are parallel and equal. See, equal is implied in it. When the opposite sides are parallel, it implies that they are equal. So that is not the definition. Okay, now I'm going to go into the properties of a parallelogram. Now, what do you make out of the diagonals of this parallelogram? Well, they are not equal, so that means they are not congruent, but they do bisect each other. So talking about the properties of a parallelogram, diagonals of a parallelogram bisect each other, opposite sides are equal, opposite angles are equal. Well, that's pretty obvious, because angle A and angle D are supplementary, angle A and angle B are also supplementary, because AD is parallel to BC. Therefore, angle D is equal to angle B and angle A is equal to angle C. So the opposite angles are equal, adjacent angles are supplementary as usual. Because the opposite sides are parallel, so adjacent angles have to be supplementary. Okay guys, moving on to the next one, which is a rhombus. Now this one is easy. How do you define a rhombus? Well, simplest definition is rhombus is a parallelogram in which all the four sides are equal. So parallelogram with all four sides equal, easy to see here. Look at the diagonals. What do you make of the diagonals? I don't think they are equal, but they are perpendicular to each other and they do bisect each other. So diagonals bisect each other at right angles. Now this is the property of a rhombus. The other properties which are there in parallelogram are already there in a rhombus, because it is a more specific parallelogram. Now, should I tell you something, that each rhombus is a parallelogram, but each parallelogram is not a rhombus? Okay, you're going to come across these kind of questions and you should be able to understand what the question means. Okay, let's move on to rectangle and let's be more specific. It is a parallelogram in which each angle is a right angle. So the opposite sides are parallel in a parallelogram, and the angle, each angle in a rectangle is 90 degrees. And what is the property of a rectangle other than the properties of a parallelogram? The diagonals are equal. So not only do the diagonals bisect each other, they do in case of parallelogram as well, but in case of rectangle, the diagonals are congruent, they are equal. And each angle, as I said, that is the definition, each angle of a rectangle is 90 degrees. Now moving on to the last one, which is a square. How do you define a square? A square is a rectangle with all four sides equal. Now, other than having all the properties of a rectangle, it's got one additional property. What is that? Diagonals bisect each other at right angle. So the diagonals are equal, they bisect each other, and they bisect each other at right angle. Now this is the summary of all that we talked about. I actually put it all together on a sheet, and I'm sure you guys can pause the video for a few seconds and take a look at this summary, which is very useful to the students of 8th and 9th grades. And in case you want me to email this sheet to you, please send me an email, as I've told you my email ID, or just put it in the comment section below. I'll be very happy posting this sheet to you all. Thank you very much for watching, and do let me know in case you have any doubts. Press the bell icon to subscribe to my channel, and you will get all the notifications whenever I make any such videos. They're going to be very useful to you, so whenever I make videos in future, you will automatically get a notification.